Some of us, half of of the group here, we have been for breakfast this morning because we share cooperative cloud projects, different ones. So maybe it's good that we do a quick round, very quick one.
Sure.
That we know, maybe each one can express on what is our challenge that we want to...
In cooperative cloud.
Yeah, what we want to share between us.
Sure.
Do we want to share development? Do we want to interconnect? What kind of things can we do, right?
So you can go first to model for us.
Okay.
Say your name, what are the challenges you'd like to address, and being concise.
commonscloud.co, please register and try. We'll validate your account. What we want is to interconnect, as I said before, with 3 ways of interconnection, like different clusters of the Commons Cloud that other people set up, or existing projects that we can mutually recognize each other's accounts.
We help organizations to build interoperable apps that can share their user base and the data of their users together. That's it.
What do you want to get out of the session?
What do I want to get out? See how we can cooperate with each other with other initiatives, but like how can we maybe have a common login system or share resources, be it documentation or code base, anything that might be interesting.
I'm from Kubitech. We are a Swiss-based, not yet founded co. We are doing similar stuff as you are doing, but we are focused on Odoo, which is a business suite. It's a bit more complex than WordPress and other website-related products. And I also represent Faircom. If you want to look on the web, it's faircom with k.eu and Kubi is .io.
Chris from Web Architects. I'm interested in sharing code with the other people that are doing similar things. We haven't done any of the single sign-on stuff. We've just done provisioning of the servers as standalone things. We're quite poor. We could do with more work. So maybe, could we have a discussion for how we can we collectively market and try and sell our services between us? I don't know. There's just an idea that occurs to me. But we're short of money and short of work.
It's also shit.
I come from a background of share your own data. I'm looking for contacts, resources, or leads on how to start using open source software for clients.
Great, thank you for modeling.
Looking for partners to help make a registry for co-ops in Australia.
Thank you.
I'm interested to see what you're doing, see if I can see if any of our tools would be useful or our thought, the way that we think could be useful.
Thank you.
More here as a listener today, but mostly I want to encourage the new model of sharing data together and build apps in a new different way.
Yeah, I'm with Alex and Surface and many things, but yeah, we're trying to make platforms cooperate with each other, and that's what we're trying to push.
I'm also here mainly as a listener and as a user. I apologise, I might be also going to the other session because I was very conflicted on which one to go, so I'll stay here a bit.
My name is Lauren. I'm interested in commons innovation, and I'm just here to listen.
I'm Marco. I'm with FKI2, the organization that is developing Commons Cloud. The thing I'm most interested in this discussion is how federation happens, how the independent projects let their users communicate with each other, use, as you were saying, a single login procedure, maybe even look all the same, because too many different interfaces can create fatigue in the users.
My name is Daniel Stripe. You'll see me online as Stripey. Disintermedia.net.nz is where I do my stuff. I'm interested in a future where I can talk to any friend or colleague and say, stop using that, Google, Facebook, whatever it is you're using, use this thing instead, and know that it's going to be just as user-friendly, built on free software, respecting their privacy and their software freedom.
Good stuff. So the interoperability.
Yeah.
So can we make some starts? I mean, Nextcloud federates between instances.
Yeah.
That works pretty neat, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we can already do between any of the Nextcloud instances.
Yeah.
The user single sign logging. We use LDAP, we can recognize other LDAP servers, we can link them to each other, right? There's neat protocols for that. We've tested made some preliminary tests, so that works, but I understand not everybody is using LDAP. So there you go. So is there OAuth or OpenID stuff? You talked about OpenID, right?
Yes.
Can we easily link that?
I am
Do we
not
need
sure
to
how it
implement some
relates
layer
to
to that?
LDAP. I think LDAP is the way to store your data, and OpenID is a way to connect.
It's on top of it, right?
Yes, it's a way to, how can I say this? OpenID is a way to authenticate to a website and authenticate to a website without providing it with your username and password. Like you log in onto, let's say, google.com, and then you use that authentication to connect to all the other services, and that allows you to log into your node that you trust in the network, and then to get recognized as the user you are on all the other apps on the network.
That would be some work that we could share to explore how exactly should we do that, and to make some testing of how between the different cloud clusters that we set up we can have this
and to have dug into it a little bit. I believe for authentication the best standard is WebID, OpenID. Oh yes, that's it. Which basically allows you to
give you a token or something, right?
It's a cutting edge of what you can do in terms of decentralized authentication. You can log onto any app with a slick user experience without having to remember anything other than the URL of the server you need to log in, and that's it.
So, but there's the technical level and there's the social level, and I think that links to the sustainability level as well. So if we imagine that we have some kind of federated agreement that between our collectives we implement these kind of federated authentication, then that requires some mutual memorandum of understanding between us or whatever to agree that we respect some basic values, that we share some basic values, that we're not selling user data, or that our software is replicable, or these kind of things, right? And that can then help as well address our collective discourse and our collective marketing efforts if you want to. Right?
Just 2 points to follow up on that. As well as Nextcloud having built-in federation, there's also built-in federation with Xmpp. So Xmpp is a chat protocol that's been around a long time, used to be called Jabber, has in the past been supported by corporations like Facebook and Google, but they dropped support of it because they wanted their own proprietary thing. So it's like an open standard for equivalent of WhatsApp. Maybe that's the easiest way for people to conceptualize it now. And that is federated. You can have your own XMPP server and your account on that, and you can talk to other people with accounts on other servers. And the interesting thing we found out at breakfast this morning is that Happy Dev in France have got their own XMPP Prosody server, and Cotec in the UK has also just implemented the same thing, so we can start to chat with each other on that, and I think that's going to be quite a good experiment, and that'll be quite useful. And then the other, just follow on about what best methods do authentication. I think what will be useful today is if we decide where we're going to continue this conversation. So my suggestion as to where we could continue this conversation is we've got an open discourse server at community.coop.tech, and we could use that. I mean, we could very easily set up a category for this and use that, but maybe there's somewhere else. But we need to agree where, after this session we're going to continue this discussion.
Yeah, that's an option. We also have the Commons Cloud mailing list. It's a small group, international group, currently quite inactive. Oliver is on it, Dennis on it, Marco is on it, and our Barcelona team is all on it, but we don't use it for the daily stuff that we do in Barcelona. So it could be an option.
Another option is the Open App Ecosystem group on Lumio,
Right.
which was set up specifically for the purpose of bringing together people working on different platforms and apps to talk about interoperation. So that it was sort of, my understanding is it was set up as the lab of the Collaborative Technology Alliance, which was formed at a meeting very much like this, people sitting in a room like this. Let's have an organisation, and then the Open App Ecosystem was kind of the lab where the idea was to get together and actually talk about the nuts and bolts of how to make everything work. So we've got another session, 3:35 in here today, that's just another, so we can basically continue this conversation at that time for those who want to participate.
That might be good maybe as well, because it's more neutral. I don't want to claim Commons Cloud for the collaborative work. Maybe the Open Hack ecosystem Lumio group is not bad.
And what I would like to say is that standards are key in this process. For example, when we realize that we respect the same Xmpp standard, then we are able to our own applications are able to talk to each other, so our users can talk to yours and vice versa. And so we don't need to synchronize each other in advance to be able to have interoperability between our tools, and I think this is really key. And so I think one of the most useful things we can do is find out the standards that makes more sense to respect, and then we can basically work on our own. And it's not a problem, because having the same foundations, we will be able to talk to each other and
So which standards?
Is this the first for the semantic web?
Yes,
If you're already describing APIs with that, you could go to the webpage of some cooperative or whatnot, and then they tell you just, we have chat, we have project management, we have this, and this is all the standards that we use for that.
Exactly.
So, sorry, maybe we have their.
I guess I'm just wondering, the big development cooperatives like Cotec, are they represented here? Because I think they're 27 dev companies in the UK, aren't they? Is that you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. And in the US, people like Danny Spitzberg's lot, are they represented here?
Yeah, we talk to them.
Yeah. Because this is the centre of gravity. We can get this to happen today, right?
This is happening!
She has three parallel competing sessions.
Fuck, man.
So just riffing off what Alex was saying, there's lots of standards already out there, and I think one of the most useful things to do would just be to map the standards that exist, to make sure that everyone knows what the standards are for exchanging event information, for XMP, for PP, for real-time chat, Activity Pub for social media, and so on. I think a lot of newer developers just aren't aware of how the standards ecosystem works. Who does the web standards, who does the internet standards, what's the difference between the two, and it's just mapping out what the standards are for each type of thing, and just getting a really clear diagram that you can throw out to people.
Well, so the Xmpp and the Activity Pub are clear standards, I think.
Yeah.
But what about this project management? So some use GitLab, we use Federated. Well, we can of course exchange file repositories over the Git protocol, but project management is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So we have agile methodology with Kanban boards. Can you
We have to
Federate
wait for
that?
holochain for this.
So this was for developing new standards as well.
Our approach on this, which is based on the semantic web, is that there is a standardized way to push your API, which is called linked data, and if you add semantics on top of it, then the data is interpretable by the tool that receives it. So you can basically push anything through the wire. And if you yes, that's it. If you semantize it, then the data can be interpreted by the tool that receives it. And at least that's the approach we are taking.
Right, but in the field of project management tools or economic tools like Odoo, not clear.
But your project.
The same thing. You have standards.
Yes, you have massive.
We have standards.
There is an electronic invoicing standard now. It's coming. But it needs time.
And you have ontologies for basically everything except, like I met yesterday some doctors and they told me no ontologies for what we do, like it's very specific, but for project management, etc., it's already very well documented.
I think what comes first is the collaborative. If you're collaborating and the two systems don't gel very well, it provides like a clear need, and then it's not that big a leap to produce the standard, the need and the shift. So, by the way, just to point out, I don't know if anyone picked it up, but Microsoft have bought GitHub.
Yeah.
Right, so just stop using it. Right? Like if you look at what they've done, they've bought Skype, which they destroyed, like deliberately. They've obviously to open up the market, right? They've bought, right. They deliberately destroyed it to open the market up to all the other comms companies and all the other like privatized like machinery. Yeah, they destroyed it. I mean, it doesn't even work.
It may have been.
No way. Anyway, so then if you look at what they've done, they've already worked. If you look at what they've done, they've bought GitHub, they've bought Skype, and what's the other thing? Yeah? Really? So if you look at what I can see, it's like their big evil overlords board, they've got get loads of social data written on it, and they're like, right, what can we get to do? If you imagine what they can get from the communications that goes on GitHub, they're just, we don't touch a private repository. No, we don't. But you're mining all this work that everyone's doing. They're going to have, in the same way Facebook will have access to all your gibberish chat, they're going to have access to like everybody deliberately thinking about stuff chat. It's like, don't use it. That's my
So we have GitHub, GitLab.
You feel better now?
I've had that conversation up with Ward Cunningham, and Ward's not a paranoid guy. He's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, I don't think it does actually.
So what alternatives do we have? GitLab,
So
GitCode.
So there's
GitHub Federated, 2 big platforms as alternatives to GitHub.
Okay.
So now the exodus from GitHub
I think we should
to these
maintain
cooperative
an
and
exodus.
open source free software platforms.
Yeah, and I think we should. I genuinely think we should.
And there's problems to solve there. The reason lots of people on GitHub, even though when you challenge them on it, they're like, yeah, we really shouldn't be using GitHub. But the reason everyone's there is because everyone's there. The same reason everyone's on Facebook. So to replace it, it's not just a matter of being able to set up your own GitHub-like repository. It's a matter of being able to link all the GitHub-like repositories together in that smooth way, as if we're all on the same platform, even though we're decentralized.
You said in your introduction. So the issue isn't just to provide a tool which is as good as and as good. What you need is a seamless track. What you actually need is you need to put your Facebook login details into Diaspora, and it needs to just constantly pull all your Facebook data until you don't care anymore. And so and the same thing with GitHub and all like maintained like mirrored repositories until you don't care anymore.
Did you guys see that there is this project? Sorry, Martin. There's this, thanks to the GDPR regulation in Europe, not as good as we wished it to be, but still. It requires data portability between platforms, and now the big 5, they have some data project, the data project I think, where they make open source tools, I say, to make migration easy.
Between Google and Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah, but still, it should be helpful for us as well.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if we get involved, we can try and pull it in a direction that benefits.
Let's profit from that.
Not just the big But guys, it'll be an interesting project to watch.
Yeah.
Because the stacks will be trying to keep it contained so that people are sloshing back and forth between them. But certainly, if we can make sure it's using open standards and open formats and everything standardized, then it could benefit us much more than it benefits them. It's going to be really interesting.
It would be good that if you would imagine a service where people can say, okay, give your Facebook profile, etc., and all your profiles, click on the migration button. You want to go to the Happy Dev starting blocks, you want to go to the web architects, or to the Commons Cloud in Barcelona, or to where? Click here. Here you have your sign up form and you become part of the co-ownership of the company.
That brings up another issue that's come up a lot in the context of federated social networking. So we've got these things, most people have probably heard of Mastodon now, but there was a
social co-op.
So there's some people from Social Co-op here, which is a Mastodon instance. So Mastodon is one software that's part of a thing called what we call the Fediverse. So it's like Twitter but decentralized, so anybody can write software that's compatible with it using a standard called ActivityPub. Mastodon's one such software, GNU Social is another one, Pubzilla is another one, there's about 7 or 8 and many new ones coming online. So one of the big problems is somebody sets up an instance, oh this will be fun, hobby project, 20 people get on that instance, set up an account, get really dependent on it, and then a year later the person goes, oh well that was a fun hobby, but now I want to go and do something else with my server. And so these 20 people are now marooned on this platform that's about to go away. So the question we've been talking a lot about is how do we make those user accounts, how do we containerize users so that I can just pick up my data from Mastodon Hub X and move it over to GNU Social Hub Y. Just as Wouter was saying, enter my URL here, click the button to import, put in my password, boom, all my data, just like moving house from one flat to another, chuck it all in a truck. So there's two challenges. One is to make the data is to put it all in standard format, so the same kind of data is always packaged in the same kind of way. So when you move it to a new service, you can go, all right, that's events data, that's messages, that's contacts, and then the protocols for how you actually handle the transfer and making sure the security, so people aren't hijacking each other's containers and stealing each other's accounts. So there's,
Sure.
It might be easier to form some kind of vertically integrated structure that actually works and that's kind of seamlessly integrated from top to bottom instead of trying to unite horizontally everyone together into some standards. That's kind of difficult, but getting some kind of vertical structure I think would be easier to achieve, and that could attract more people just from achieving some success.
What do you change? What do you change if you do that?
Is this the competing protocols thing? So there's 15 competing protocols and everybody's like, it doesn't quite do it correctly, so then they're like, I'm going to make a better protocol. Now there's 16 competing protocols?
That's not what I'm trying to do.
What do you mean by vertical?
You've got an organization,
Yeah, I'm just talking about instead of uniting everyone together, just creating an entity that actually works, that's super easy for the user, where everything just works together, instead of trying to unite everyone to agree on some kind of protocol.
I think
That would be another Facebook, basically.
What?
I think the problem with this approach is that the same approach that has been very successfully followed by Google and Facebook, and that following that approach you recreate something which is easy and integrated and so on, but has all the same problems, no matter who runs it. So you just, if you, it's like if you build you have a building or a furniture that is built with toxic materials. If you change the design here, but keep building furniture with the same toxic material, it's still toxic. If you rebuild something that is as integrated as Facebook or Gmail or Google services, you still have, you end up after a couple of years with the same exact problems of privacy, control, political meddling, because everything is inside one box that much easier to influence and so on. I think that is the problem, right?
You say it is important that we get our stack right. Only we work on slightly different approaches between our different groups. We have a lot of things in common, but we still do work in a similar direction, most of us. And we're not integrating horizontally, we are making a decentralized network. So we have our local nodes that connect, hopefully, that's what we work on, to the others. And we share some of the code base, or at least the protocols.
It's a very good point actually. What makes an application good, most of the apps we use, what makes them good is the network effect. That is the quantity of data that you can access through the tool. That's why Facebook or Airbnb, it's impossible to move them from the market. They are a monopoly because they contain so much data that even if you would have the best social media in terms of feature, no one would use it because all your friends are already on Facebook, and the cost to move all together is so high that it just won't happen. And the only way out of this is to interconnect different apps so that you can have several interfaces accessing a common pool of data, as long as we stay in a model where the app contains the data, then you can have only one actor per market, and it's going to be a monopoly, and your intentions won't change anything to it. It's either you become the monopoly and then with all the associated problems of monopoly, or you are dominated by the monopoly and you don't exist on the market.
I don't see it so black and white. I mean, you need to scale, and some centralization is still needed. I mean, when we have the Web3 with IPFS, it will get much easier to build distributed applications, but so far it's still, if you want to scale and make it user-friendly, you have to have some vertical structure which has power, and you need.
If you take the WordPress example, for example, basically like they are 1/3 of the web, so they scale big time, and they did it in a decentralized way, meaning that there is not one corporation selling all the WordPress websites. They are part of an ecosystem, and that's what we're trying to build in. And they are fairly profitable automatic.
There's some questions there. There's a contribution there.
Suddenly.
Yeah. So in Australia we have an enterprise cooperative that's in formation between, it's called the Member-Owned Operating System Enterprise Co-op, so moose.coop. And what we're doing is recognising that pre-formation co-ops like Incubator Co-op, our existing co-op ecosystem of about 1,900 co-ops, but also the unions and other member-owned organisations like the Duke of Edinburgh Awards and things. We're all coming together. What we need as Moose is a whole bunch of technology that nobody has yet put in one place to help member-owned organisations with governance, visualisation, registry, exchanges, transactions and stuff. I'd like to put to you guys who are the more technological people that there is, at least in Australia, a defined market with a need, and we'd like you guys to get that protocol and interoperability sorted out so that we can use it in that sort of vertical structure of member-owned organisations, of which co-ops make a big chunk of it. So we've got the customers, we don't have the tech. But we've managed to get those existing co-ops, those future co-ops, and those unions in Australia all into an enterprise co-op. So all we're very close.
Do you want to replicate one of our models so that we can interconnect? You want to replicate one of our proposals so you can integrate?
I think so.
I didn't quite understand the question.
Are you looking for like legal services, company formation, or membership governance?
So one of the things, what we've got is like for projects and co-ops, they can use a thing called GetUp, which has like a shared drive, a shared calendar, distributed messaging app, and contacts. So that's like what we've got. But then the unions want things like direct ballots, and the existing co-ops want a single register or dashboard, so to speak, so that they can, as a member of one cooperative, I'm likely to be a member of multiple cooperatives, so I want a dashboard to manage all my systems. So we're an enterprise co-op of member-owned organisations. We're not an enterprise co-op of technology providers, and maybe there is a marriage or something between the enterprise co-op for the customers and the enterprise co-op for the tech providers. I don't quite know, but we want to be, I want to advocate on behalf of Moose Co-op that they want to be at the table with you guys.
Yeah, that would be good. Very good.
We just go to this gentleman, I think it was just before.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay, a couple of things to think over in the future, certainly not things to provide answer or solutions right now in 2 minutes, but just food for thought to share and develop. Along the road, one big issue for all these solutions is going to be accessibility. Because if nothing else, because it is a showstopper for any adoption by public administrations almost anywhere in the world. We should not repeat the mistake made 12 years ago now with the open document format. In the United States, they were able to block its adoption because they say this is not usable by disabled people, which was false, but they managed because the free software community was not prepared to reply at that level. So accessibility is big in this. Second and last thing, I have, migration, data portability, migration, one-click migration of all my data from Facebook, Gmail, whatever, to any other place is as cool as, I fear, I will be happy to be proven wrong, as cool as useless, because it's in a sense it is like moving all my phone book from one phone to another phone who cannot talk to all of your phones. The problem with Facebook is that I can migrate everything I want, but the next day or the next hour, all my contacts who are remained on Facebook will keep talking and doing things and scheduling events and whatnot, and I will be cut off because in the new box in which I happily live with all my data, I cannot get automatic Facebook notifications anymore. So let's not be overly enthusiastic about data migration. What I think it's important, also because it makes the passage acceptable to many more people, is integration of notifications, both from these proprietary silos, because so I'm not forced anymore to go on Facebook every day, but at least if there is somebody who's trying to contact me, I know it without going on Facebook. This is possible. There is software for this. And also, very last thing, there should be attention to integrating notifications from all these boxes, because if Federation is only about file sharing, for example, with one Nextcloud account here at Commons Cloud, I can see what you put there and vice versa, then it is equally important to receive notifications that, for example, you uploaded a new document. So this is all things to consider down the road.
Thanks. There's a few things, I'm not going to bother with that. That looks very bad. So this idea of verticality, actually before you mentioned it, I think I was pointing out now, if you look at, so like the core technology around sort of what the Holochain project and the company was built, actually the core idea, which is something I was advocating when I worked there, but they're very strong on creating this sort of hard siloed product, which is how they've made their money, so fair enough. But if you look at what I think makes sense in this space is what we're really talking about is if we create one space, if I just fire all my raw data constantly, every single thing I do gets fired into a kind of agent-centric, right, my cloud hosting, cryptographically stored, right? So I'm just constantly blasting data up there. Now, my Facebook stream, if I do something like write a post that I want to send to my friends, I can equally give Facebook access to that chunk filter of my data stream as I can to anything else. So it's like a raw product. I mean, this is going to happen. I mean, I'm going to build it anyway, do you know what I mean? So, I mean, there's loads of good reasons to build it, but so the point is to have a private place. I mean, you know, the major issue with wearables and that kind of stuff is that nobody trusts. Like, you might trust Facebook with like your chatter, but you're not going to trust them with your heart rate. Do you know what I mean? Nobody. Some people probably do, but a lot of people won't. Right. So the thing is, if you can create one, if I have my real-time data silo, right, just preening data off me constantly, and then the products that come off of it, be they Facebook, be they whatever, any of our products, anything that we're doing, what they do is they access a filtered subset of that data. Now from that point, you've then got, it's like, well, I don't need to migrate my data from here to there. I just need one, I can have the same data flow and I can chuck it up on all of them. Great, okay, I can shut down Facebook's access to my data flow, fine. And then GDPR, I can be like, you can actually, the system that we've got called green hosting, what you do is people store hashes of the data that they've processed, but they process in RAM your real data, but they never put it on any kind of, what's the word? Storage. Yeah, they never put it on any like disks, hard storage, right, ever. Right, so it's like, okay, this is GDPR as I can possibly be. I'm sorry, if that gets hacked, like, what? Do you know what I mean? There's like little gremlins in my memory chips, like I'm genuinely sorry, right? So that's all we kind of, so I just think it's an interesting idea. And in terms of verticality, like that is a base of a vertical that you can present that it's not siloing, it's good privacy, it's personal empowerment, shifts the value of the market. It's a complicated question, right?
Good. Ask a question.
This is the architecture we are based on. It's like this.
Really interesting. So we are far too many men in this room. We have only had basically we had very little contributions from can we have some contributions from Sophie's in this room, for example? What is your opinion of the discussion so far? Has it been useful?
Not so into opinions. I think that's a male thing. I think for me, and I did walk in sort of about 15 minutes ago as well, so I may have missed some things. But for me, I think what's brilliant is coming together, because I think there's a lot of ideas here that people have been working on that have a lot in common. And I think just even these conversations about, for example, having everything in a cloud. I think you mentioned this morning, didn't you, about us all having our own private cloud. And then that, to me, creates a bit of a shift, because then we think differently. If we turn that upside down and we think about our data as our possessions in a way, and we decide where we want them stored and we decide what to do with them, then it kind of opens up whole new avenues for innovation, doesn't it? And for consent. And for me, consentful tech is really important. And I guess that sense of ownership and people having a sense of empowerment and giving power back to people. And I don't even like calling them users. I think everyone is a collaborator in some sense in this world that we're creating together. So this conversation for me has been a kind of uplifting thing, because it's a sense that we can all come together to create a different world that is the new model that makes the existing model eventually obsolete. And it won't happen straight away, but it will be a viable enough model, and I think it will have a good enough go at making the existing model obsolete. Because why would you handle your data owned by corporations if you've got a viable alternative that's accessible, and I think accessibility is really, really key, that's easy to use, that has single sign-ins, and then you start getting people who are not open source techie people able to use it, because as soon as something looks even slightly techie, you lose 95% of people. So I think that's our aim, probably collectively, is to make something that's seamless, really usable, really user-friendly, and that puts people in control.
So just one of my promises to Ollie is for inviting that contribution. I'd say as a non-techie, I'd also, and someone who's barely following half the conversation, to be honest, I would also add, if it is the norm to have that private server, then the norm. If it's norm, if everyone else does that, then I, as a new person, I go, oh, I'll do that.
Yeah.
If it's not the norm, then I won't. So there's like a threshold, critical mass thing to get right.
Creating a new narrative, isn't it? Creating the new rules.
And so it's about norms where people who are not part of this movement go, oh, that's the norm now.
Yeah.
So there's something there to be done. I just want to land. I just want to make so as we end, what's important is like the next steps. So there was a place on Lumio which you said the ongoing conversation, because there was a couple of near agreements, which we didn't like. But I just want to make sure that people are carrying them forward either into Lumio or into conversations like
Lumio.org, open app
So it's the
ecosystem.
open app ecosystem. I wish we had a whiteboard in here.
just right on the.
Someone doing the collaborative notes on the cloudosphere.
For most of you, we have email addresses. If I don't have your email addresses, give it to me. So I add you to the group, and then I invite you to this group and remind you of the link.
One thing is to join in that group and to make it the central place, or the prominent place where the conversation continues. The second is things which were nearly agreed were about having.
Sorry, 3:35 back in here today. We're having another discussion about the open app ecosystem. So if you want to continue this discussion back here at 3:35.
So things which I suspect are actions for you, Wouter, are about. So we talked about having a memorandum of understanding with those other players who want to have interoperability. And the second thing was having interoperability and the
So
connection.
the social level, the MOUs, and the technical level, right?
There was some sort of principles about for success, like making the transfer easy, making it eventually something that non-technical people can do. And then there was the call for a replacement for GitHub and getting off Git. But that feels like 1,000 flowers bloom, and let's make that possible. But particularly going forward with those agreements, so that then there is moving on. And I suppose the other thing as a non-technical person, identifying who's the person with the pain point who would be helped by this happening. Not that would be the thing. So on that point, it is done 12:35. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for starting this.